Hello everyone, a warm welcome to all of you. I am Dr. Maitreyi Chennu from the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology from Narayana Health, Bangalore. Today we will be discussing on an important topic, breastfeeding. So breastfeeding is an age-old tradition which has been followed by everyone in this world. But even though if it's a age-old tradition, there are many misconceptions and many questions regarding this topic. So to discuss this topic and to answer all your questions, we have today with us Dr. Sapna Raina, a senior consultant in obstetrics and gynecology, and Dr. Harini, senior consultant in pediatrics and neonatology. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Maitri.
So, ma'am, how does a woman prepare for breastfeeding during her pregnancy?
Well, Maitri, if you ask me, a newborn baby doesn't require much, and he has very few needs. The most important one is the warmth which a baby gets in his mother's lap. Second being food from her breast, and third is the sense of security which he gets, from her presence. And breastfeeding, caters to all these needs. So if you ask me, the preparation for breastfeeding should be started from day one, that is the day of conception. A lady should be, imparted this information of breastfeeding, the management benefits of breastfeeding, not only to her but to her baby. Okay, so we make her understand, the importance. We build up this confidence that yes, she can successfully breastfeed her baby, right? Moreover, whenever she's having an antenatal visit, it's important to look for any a breast problem or any retracted nipples. So because these are small things and require very small this thing help, so that it can help her in the long run. So I think right from the beginning we can start preparing her.
Thank you, ma'am. So, is there any correlation between medically complicated pregnancies such as hypertension, diabetes, and obesity, and early breastfeeding behavior?
Yes, I think like there are certain prenatal and delivering complications that can hamper breastfeeding or breastfeeding initiation. So it's really important to make certain hospital policies and to create a breastfeeding friendly environment for such women. And for that, meticulous coordination is required between the doctors, nursing, lactation counselors, and of course the family members. And talking about the medical problems, especially women who have diabetes, we call it GDM. It has been seen, such mothers if they lactate, it's easier for them to take care of their glucose tolerance and sugar values if they are lactating in their early postpartum phase than the ladies who are not lactating. Moreover, the breastfed babies, they are more likely not to develop diabetes, obesity, metabolic syndrome in their adult life. So it's very important to consider breastfeeding in such patients as well.
Thank you, ma'am. A lot of people are worried that after having a cesarean section that the milk production would be less and all. So does a cesarean section actually impact the milk supply?
Well, there are studies that suggest that patients who have opted for scheduled cesarean section are less likely to initiate breastfeeding than the ladies who undergo trial of labor or who have developed who have delivered normally vaginal delivery. Uh, but then once the lactation gets established, I don't think there is much of a difference. So here again, the ladies who undergo cesarean section, we need to promote or encourage such patients to cuddle more often with their babies. And if at all, there's, she's unable to see her baby for more than 12 hours, then we have to encourage pumping or expressing a breast milk, be it manually or using breast pumps.
Okay. And a lot of patients after undergoing the cesarean, they would be in a lot of pain and they would have difficulty in feeding the baby. So what positions would you recommend for the patient to?
Very rightly said, Maitri. I mean, because of the pain in the incision site, she's unable to sit for the initial few hours, and the first hour, that is the golden hour after the delivery, we have to encourage her to feed her baby. So I think in my opinion, what I have seen, feeding baby in the lateral position while lying down, I think it's the best position I think Harini can put a little more on this if she knows.
Yeah. Just as Dr. Sapna mentioned, they generally do complain a lot of pain, and a lot of women do come to us saying that no, we've not initiated breastfeeding because we've undergone a C-section, we're scared to move, we don't know how to feed our baby. But as she mentioned, the lateral or the lying down position is relatively safe at this point of time, although we prefer to put the newborn babies back to their sleep. As long as there is somebody along with the mother, ready to supervise the whole feeding, give support to the mother, the lateral position can be used in helping her establish feeding. It may take a day or time, but rather than not trying it in fear of pain, I would advise them to go ahead and try it in that position. Something is better than nothing at this point.
Yes, ma'am, that's true. So, ma'am, how do we know if the breastfeeding is sufficient for the baby? And a lot of parents are worried that whether formula feed is good or not. Can you throw us a little light on that?
One of the main issues when it comes to breastfeeding or breast milk production or secretion is that it can never be measured. Yes, you can actually take a pump out and measure, but that would never be 100% accurate. And especially in the situation where they're discharged and they're sent home, and majority of the mothers come and say, no, we're not secreting enough milk, either because the baby is crying or the baby is sleeping, or when I press my breast, hardly a few drops come out. These are not the accurate ways. Generally, as a doctor, what we look out for is the weight. As long as there is not an excessive weight loss in the initial 10 days, some amount of it is acceptable. Or on the follow-up visits, the baby is actually gaining sufficient weight. The baby is having adequate wet diapers, passing adequate number of urine, which is approximately for any baby 5 days and above, it is at least 6 to 7 times per day. And the baby is stooling adequately. Normally in the initial few days, passage of stools is a fairly reliable indicator of feeding. Generally, the babies who are well fed tend to pass stools more regularly, and they pass a good amount of slightly loose motions. Also, when the baby is feeding, we look at other things like, is the jaw moving adequately? Is the baby active while feeding? Is the baby not too cranky, that is crying all the time? If the baby is generally well fed and then well rested, and the baby is otherwise a fairly happy baby, we consider these markers along with weight gain as important indicators of feeding sufficient.
Thank you, ma'am. A lot of parents complain that the baby has been crying all night, they're not able to sleep properly, and they think that it's because of less feeding. Like, what is the normal behavior of a sleeping behavior of a baby, and like, what are the sleep patterns and the normal behavior, ma'am?
This is again subject to interpretation by a doctor and by a mother and also grandmothers in certain situations. What happens is that babies may exhibit a wide variety of normal movements and normal patterns, and sometimes what they do is they do something called as a cluster feed, wherein they feed for every half an hour or every 10 to 15 minutes and follow it by prolonged sleep of 3 to 4 hours, and then they may go back to a regular pattern of feeding either every 2 hours or 3 hours or 1 hour. Sometimes this can be considered as, no, my baby is not getting enough milk and that's why my baby is feeding frequently. But generally we don't look at this just one indicator as a pattern of poor feeding. If your baby is crying but otherwise is quite consolable, majority of the feeds, say out of 12 feeds, at least 8 feeds are good. And as mentioned previously, the baby is having adequate stool diapers and urine diapers. We don't consider them as signs of poor feeding or poor lactation, and as long as there is good weight gain. But if your child is really inconsolable, crying for a very prolonged bout of time, say 4 to 6 hours, child is not passing enough urine, not passing enough motion, very irritable, difficult to console, then in such cases it would be more prudent to visit your nearest emergency pediatric center or visit your nearest doctor, because there could be a wide range of conditions which may cause irritability in a child.
Thank you, ma'am. So what are the danger signs in a newborn, and how can the parents identify them fast?
Okay, so generally, as mentioned in quite a few discussions previously, a child is usually well rested, feeds approximately 8 to 12 times a day. Children, newborn babies, are usually relatively pink. There are a large number of rashes which may come and go. Most of them, majority of them are normal. Your baby's face may also look a little bit yellow, and as long as your child is feeding well, pooping well, passing urine well, crying and showing some amount of normal behavior, we consider the child to be normal. But at any point of time, if you find your child is unusually yellow, looking very deeply yellow in the eyes or in the palms and the soles, then it is time to visit your pediatrician. Or if your child is very dull, not waking up, majority sleeps for stretches of 5 hours or 6 hours, doesn't show any indication, or you need to really be very aggressive in waking up the child, you're struggling, the child doesn't wake up naturally and cry for hunger, or if your urine of the baby goes low, suppose say on a 5th day your child doesn't pass, just passes 1 or 2 times urine, which is very dark yellow and very small quantity, or say your child has not passed stools for 4 to 5 days at a stretch, then this is time you need to get your baby and show to your nearest doctor.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, could you tell us a little bit about delayed cord clamping versus immediate cord clamping?
Yeah, this is something new and it's been in practice for nearly almost for the past 8 to 10 years. This is something which when you come to any center for delivery or even for a cesarean section, this is something you need to speak to your doctor beforehand and ensure that it is being practiced. In delayed cord clamping, once your baby is delivered, what they do is they don't immediately cut the umbilical cord. The umbilical cord is something which joins your placenta to your baby. Instead, they allow the baby to rest on the mother. They continue with other routine care, say if the baby is wet, wipe the baby, maintain the temperature of the baby. They wait for approximately a minute to 5 minutes. This is extremely important because during this crucial 1 minute, there is a transfer of a good amount of blood. Approximately, you can say around 210 grams of blood, enough goes from the mother to the baby. This prevents the development of anemia in your baby at around 9 months and also helps in better development of your baby's brain. Of course, there may be certain situations, say if your baby is very premature or if your baby is very sick or requiring intensive resuscitation, these practices may not be done immediately at birth. But on the whole, for majority of the babies, we should insist on delayed cord clamping, and this is something you can ask your doctor as a mother to be done.
Thank you, ma'am. Coming to the latest topic of discussion, COVID-19. Everyone is very worried about how COVID-19 would affect the pregnancy. So, Dr. Sapna, can you please tell us how COVID impacts the pregnancy and the baby?
Yes, I mean, especially we have seen the pregnant ladies who are elderly, obese, or they have, pre-existing medical problem like diabetes, hypertension. They are at a higher risk of developing severe form of the disease, than the, patients who are not pregnant. They may require, extra ICU care. Okay? And these are the patients, who the pregnant ladies who are COVID infected may go into preterm labor, preeclampsia, and sudden abruptio that can be dangerous for both the mother as well as the baby. So yes, we need to educate our pregnant ladies to protect themselves against COVID-19 like any other respiratory illness.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Hani, do we have to separate the mother and the baby like once after the delivery has happened if the mother is a COVID patient?
This is something which depends on the hospitals or that institution's particular policies. It depends if they have adequate separation facilities. If, for example, you have a very large maternity ward and there is a place where you can actually room in the baby with the mother, then yes, definitely that's a way to go forward. What is generally usually recommended is that such mothers can directly breastfeed their baby. They can do so wearing a mask, washing their hands, using a sanitizer. And once the breastfeeding is done, they can be kept at a distance of say approximately 6 feet away from the mother. So during feeding, the child is brought near the mother, and once the feeding is finished, the child can be placed away. Placing away doesn't mean that the child necessarily needs to be separated. Of course, being among a middle income or lower income country, every corona positive woman may not require to be admitted. So there are a lot of poor people say, and they have their own space constraints. So in these situations, once they go home, the baby and the mother may be in a room which might have the distance or which might not. But in all these circumstances, the underlying main message is that the mother follows very strict levels and standards of hygiene. So she needs to wear a mask and she needs to wash her hands. Generally, COVID is something which is transmitted with very, very close contact, say coughing and sneezing. So these practices like covering your mouth while coughing or sneezing, regular hand washing are definitely helpful in preventing the transmission of COVID from the mother to the baby.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your informative answers. I hope everyone has benefited from this session, and thank you all for joining.